I always thought love was loud. The kind of loud that echoes off kitchen walls while you're dancing barefoot, or the hum of two people singing off-key in the car with the windows rolled down. Lola and I had that kind of love, or at least I thought we did. She laughed with her whole chest. When she sang, people turned around in restaurants. She made sound feel like home. So when she told me she wanted to take her singing more seriously, I didn't blink. I encouraged it. Helped her set up a little studio space in our spare room. Bought her a new microphone. Even found her a vocal coach online. His name was Miguel. Claimed he used to be a touring backup singer for someone semi-famous in the early 2000s. Lola thought he was a genius. I thought he wore too many bracelets for a grown man, but I kept that to myself. You trust your partner. You support their growth. You believe in the story you built together. At first, I thought it was going well. She came home energized. Always humming something. Her voice got stronger. She started wearing lipstick again, like she used to back when we first met. I was proud. But there's a difference between lighting someone up and watching them slowly catch fire and walk away from you. The lessons started happening more frequently. 3 times a week turned into 4. Then weekends. She said Miguel offered to help her prepare for an upcoming performance at a local arts festival. Said it was important for her confidence. Said I wouldn't understand, because I wasn't creative. That one stung a little. But I brushed it off. Maybe I wasn't an artist, but I was a good man. I showed up. Paid the bills. Ran errands. Made her tea before bed. Loved her. I didn't see it at first. I didn't want to. She'd come home late and smell like cheap cologne that wasn't mine. She was always texting, smiling at her phone. Her phone used to live face up on the counter. Now it was always face down. Little things. Little cracks in the wall that you tell yourself are just wear and tear. Not collapse. One night, she fell asleep with her phone on the couch. Unlocked. A small mercy from the universe, or maybe a mistake from a woman too caught up in her own daydream. I wasn't looking for anything. I was looking for nothing. But the nothing wasn't there. The messages were clear. Too clear. The way he called her, me soul. The way she sent voice notes moaning scales that had nothing to do with music. The way she told him she hadn't slept with me in weeks and didn't plan to. I sat there with the screen glowing in my hands, heart pounding like I'd sprinted a marathon sitting still. That was the night the music stopped. I didn't say anything. Not at first. I closed the app, placed the phone gently beside her, and went to bed. Slept next to her like I didn't know. Like I hadn't just read the cliff notes to the end of my marriage. I needed time to think. Not to react. Rage is easy. But revenge? Revenge takes patience. The next morning, I kissed her forehead. Made her coffee. She smiled at me like nothing had changed. And for her, maybe nothing had. But for me? Everything had shifted. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was the man she didn't know was watching. I started small. I double-checked our bank accounts. Moved some funds. Separated my savings. Made a quiet call to a friend in property management. Asked about lease laws and eviction terms. Because here's the thing she didn't know, I owned the building Miguel taught in. Bought it 3 years ago when the market dipped. Always figured it'd make a decent retirement investment. Funny, huh? So I played dumb. I asked about her lessons. Told her how proud I was. Gave her a little extra money for new dresses and performance makeup. I wanted her to feel comfortable. To think I was still in the fog. Because when you cut someone loose, it's better if they don't see the scissors. But I saw everything. I saw how she looked at her phone like it held oxygen. I saw how she flinched when I touched her shoulder. I saw how she practiced smiling in the mirror before turning to face me. And most of all, I saw how little I meant to a woman I gave everything to. It's a strange kind of heartbreak, realizing someone you loved so much didn't even bother to hate you. She just replaced you. But I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to make sure they both understood that you don't get to hum your little tune while standing on the ashes of someone else's peace. Let them sing. Let them glow. Because soon, I'd turn down the lights. And that, my friend, was only the first crack. The thing about betrayal is, it doesn't come with a storm. It comes with stillness. It comes with a long, drawn-out silence where the air feels heavier and every word sounds like it's walking on eggshells. I kept up the act. Kissed her goodbye. Cooked dinner. Cleaned up. I was the same man I'd always been, except I wasn't. I had shifted beneath the surface, like a fault line waiting for the tremor. I started researching. Quietly. After she went to sleep, I'd stay up, laptop glowing in the dark. Looking into Miguel's history. His so-called credentials. His real name, which, by the way, wasn't Miguel. He went by that for flair. His actual name was Doug. And Doug had a few interesting skeletons in his digital closet. Past due rent in 3 cities. 1 dismissed restraining order from an ex-student. And 0 record of ever touring with anyone outside of a failed garage band he hyped on YouTube. I printed it all. Saved copies to a hard drive. I wasn't just going to expose them, I was going to peel back every layer of their fantasy and let the truth rot in the sun. Next came the studio. I sent an anonymous tip to the city. Claimed I was concerned about overcrowding, safety issues, noise violations. They sent an inspector. And wouldn't you know it? Poor Doug had skipped a few permits. The kind that close you down until they're fixed, and take months to get approved. Meanwhile, rent was still due. And I wasn't in the mood to offer extensions. At home, I staged the exit slowly. Quietly moved my valuables to a storage unit across town. Stopped logging into our joint streaming accounts. Changed my emergency contact at work. Took my name off the lease of the car I bought her. Little things. Petty things, maybe. But every cut, every withdrawal, was intentional. You don't just walk away. You erase your footprints until the trail vanishes behind you. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did and chose not to ask. Either way, it didn't matter. The house was still warm. My voice still gentle. But in my head, I had already left. I started sleeping in the guest room. Claimed I had a cold. Too much work. A sore back. Excuses. But really, I just couldn't lie beside someone who hummed in her sleep while whispering another man's name by day. The final straw came on a Thursday. She left her phone unlocked again. Maybe she got lazy. Maybe she thought I'd finally given up. I wish I could say I didn't look, but I did. This time, it wasn't texts. It was photos. One of her in Miguel's studio, his hands on her waist while she sang. Another of them at a park. Kissing under a tree. And one more, this one sent to him. Just her, wearing a dress I bought her, captioned with, "Wish you were unzipping this." So I took a screenshot. Just one. I printed it. Put it in an envelope. And slid it under her pillow. That night, I didn't say a word. And that was the night she finally realized the silence wasn't love anymore, it was goodbye, wrapping itself in stillness and waiting for her to catch up. She didn't say anything the next morning. Not a word. She got up a little earlier than usual. Moved through the house like she was stepping over landmines. I watched her brush her hair without looking in the mirror. I watched her sip coffee she didn't taste. That envelope hadn't just delivered a photo, it had shattered her fantasy. But I still didn't speak. The silence between us turned thick, like fog. She hovered near me in the kitchen, waiting for me to break. I didn't. I handed her the travel mug she always used and walked away. Later that day, she sent me a text. Just one word, sorry. I didn't reply. Then came another, can we talk? Still nothing from me. I let her sit in that space, the space she created. And she didn't like it. People think guilt brings people together. It doesn't. It isolates. She tried being sweet. She tried being apologetic. She even tried cooking dinner and wearing the perfume I used to love. But it was too late for all that. I had already made my move. A few days before, I contacted a lawyer. Quietly. Efficiently. I wasn't filing for divorce just yet, but I wanted the papers drawn up and ready. I handed over the evidence. Photos. Texts. Printed messages. I wasn't playing a guessing game anymore, I was stacking the deck. And I still hadn't told her a thing. Then came Miguel, or Doug, rather. His little music shop was officially shut down. A city inspector slapped a bright orange sticker on the glass door, closed until further notice. No warning. No explanation. But I watched from across the street as he stood in front of that sticker, shoulders slumped like someone had stolen the last note of his song. That was the first domino. More were coming. And I was just getting started. After the studio shut down, Lola started to fray around the edges. She tried to pretend everything was fine, but you can only wear a mask for so long before it starts to slip. She spent more time at home now, more time around me. But the funny thing was, we were closer in distance and further apart than ever. She tiptoed through conversations. Asked questions like she was scared of the answers. Did you sleep okay? Want me to pick something up from the store? But it wasn't kindness. It was guilt wearing a friendly face. I'd nod. Smile. Pretend. And every day, I waited for her to crack. One night, she finally asked, "Did you put that photo under my pillow?" I looked up from my book. Took a breath. Yes. She stared at me, eyes glassy, like she wanted to cry but wasn't sure if she had permission. Why didn't you say anything? Because I already knew everything I needed to know, I said. Talking would have just made it messier. She stood there a long time, hoping I'd offer a lifeline. I didn't. I let her drown in the silence she helped create. That weekend, she didn't go to Miguel's. Because Miguel didn't have a studio anymore. Word had gotten around. About the violations. The eviction. The city red tape. Clients started disappearing like smoke. Turns out, people don't want their kids taking lessons from a guy who's now teaching out of his one-bedroom apartment. I didn't stop there. I dropped another anonymous tip to the board of directors at the local arts council. Mentioned Miguel's questionable past. Included a little packet. No return address. Just documents. Photos. Enough to get him removed from a mentorship program he'd been chasing for months. He went from mentor to cautionary tale in a single afternoon. Lola tried to reach out to him less and less. I noticed. Her texts slowed down. Her calls got shorter. You could hear the desperation in her voice when she'd hang up. She still wore makeup like she was waiting for someone to notice. But no one did. She was stranded on the stage of her own choices. I gave her the divorce papers a few days later. No drama. Just placed them on the kitchen table next to her tea. She walked in and froze like she'd seen a ghost. It's not revenge, I said. It's release. She picked them up with shaking hands. Tried to speak. But what do you say to someone who already packed their bags emotionally 6 months ago? I moved out that night. Left her the house. I didn't want it. It was just a stage now. One she could keep playing pretend on. She cried when I closed the door behind me. But I wasn't sad. I was free. Freedom's a strange thing. At first, it feels like a wide open road. No rules, no traffic, just you and the wind. But after the silence sets in, you realize how much space there really is. I wasn't sad when I left Lola. But I was tired. Tired in a way sleep doesn't fix. I moved into a small apartment on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. Just clean walls, peace, and no reminders. I bought a cheap guitar, the kind that goes out of tune if you look at it wrong. But I didn't care. I played anyway. Badly. Loudly. Like I had something to say, even if no one was listening. Every few days, Lola would text. Small things. Hope you're okay. Saw your jacket, I can drop it off. I miss you. I didn't answer. Not because I was trying to be cruel. But because I'd already said everything in my silence. Then the calls started. Once a week. Her voice always cracked on the voicemail. Like she wanted to be angry but couldn't quite remember how. Eventually she stopped trying. And I guess that's when I knew she'd finally hit her wall. Miguel called me too. Blocked number. Left a voicemail trying to sound calm. Said I was petty. Said I ruined his life. Said if I ever wanted to talk man to man, I knew where to find him. I didn't delete it. I kept it. Played it back a few times. The irony of him wanting to talk about manhood made me laugh out loud. I imagined him sitting in his apartment with empty lesson slots and a broken espresso machine, wondering how everything went so wrong. He knew. But I wasn't done. I contacted a local newspaper. Posed as a concerned parent. Sent them the same packet I gave the council. The story ran under a vague headline, Community Music Teacher Under Fire for Past Misconduct. They didn't print everything. But they printed enough. And Miguel's name started disappearing from flyers, from community programs, from people's mouths. Lola's world kept shrinking. No invitations. No open mics. No stage. Just her, her phone, and the echo of what she gave up. And me? I started breathing again. Took long walks with no destination. Ate greasy food. Slept through the night. I even smiled at strangers. I ran into one of our old friends at the grocery store. She looked surprised to see me. Said, Lola told everyone you left her for someone else. I chuckled. Nah, I said. I just left her for myself. The friend blinked, then smiled a little. Like something finally made sense. That's the thing about truth. You don't need to shout it. You just let people catch up to it in their own time. And I had all the time in the world. You'd think after all that, I'd feel satisfied. That the quiet justice I served would fill the empty spaces. But healing doesn't work on a schedule. There are good days, sure. But there are also nights when a song comes on the radio and it takes everything in me not to change it, or let it pull me back. Lola used to sing along to everything. Even the commercials. And some nights, the silence where her voice used to be felt louder than any argument we never had. Still, I kept moving. I picked up some freelance work. Nothing major, just enough to keep the lights on and the fridge full. I liked it. I liked choosing who I spoke to, what I gave my time to. It felt like breathing with both lungs for the first time in years. One afternoon, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. Just my name and a zip code. Inside was a single page. Lola's handwriting. She'd always written in these long, looping letters like she was composing music. The letter was short though. Just a few lines. I'm sorry. I miss who we were. I understand if you never want to see me again. But I needed to say it. No excuses. No begging. Just that. I read it once. Folded it back up. Placed it in the drawer with the others. Yes, there were others. Messages she'd sent. Cards she mailed. Little emotional breadcrumbs she hoped I'd follow back home. But I'd already found a different path. I went to an open mic night. Sat in the back. Didn't bring my guitar. Just watched. A teenage girl got up and sang a shaky cover of something I didn't recognize. She missed half the notes. But she smiled the whole time, and the room clapped like she'd nailed it. That kind of honesty, that kind of effort, that's what music should be. Not a lie. Not a cover for betrayal. When I got home that night, I picked up my guitar and wrote something. Nothing polished. Just a few chords and a line I kept humming. I gave you my heart, and you tuned it for someone else's song. It wasn't bitter. Just real. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like I was writing for me. Not for revenge. Not for closure. Just for peace. A few weeks after the letter, I ran into her. Not planned. Just one of those strange coincidences life throws at you to test your reflexes. I was in line at the bookstore, waiting to buy a cheap thriller I'd probably forget in a week. She walked in wearing the same green scarf I gave her on our second anniversary. She spotted me before I had a chance to pretend I hadn't seen her. Our eyes met. No drama. No scene. Just two people with history standing between them like glass. Brian, she said, her voice soft, almost uncertain. Lola. We stood there for a moment, not moving. She stepped forward, hesitated, then asked, "Do you have time for coffee?" I could have said no. Probably should have. But something in her eyes told me she wasn't there to rewrite the past. She just wanted to stand in it for a moment. We sat at a corner table, far from the counter. She wrapped her hands around a mug she barely touched. I let her talk. She told me Miguel left town. Packed up his life and moved 2 states over. Said the city had it out for him. Said he was tired of being blamed for everything. I didn't ask where he went. Didn't care. She told me she hadn't sung since the studio closed. Said music felt different now. Hollow. Forced. I listened. Then she looked up and asked, "Do you hate me?" That question hit harder than anything she'd said before. Not because I hadn't asked myself the same thing 100 times. But because I finally had the answer. "No," I said. "I don't hate you. I just don't know who you are anymore." She nodded, like she'd expected that. Maybe even needed to hear it. There's something sobering about realizing forgiveness doesn't come with a door back in. We talked a little longer. Nothing heavy. Just stories. Weather. Movies we used to watch. Then I stood up, told her it was good to see her, and walked out. I didn't look back. And that night, when I got home, I slept better than I had in months. Sometimes closure isn't a door slamming shut. It's just the quiet sound of your own footsteps walking away, steady and sure. The days blurred after that. Not in a bad way, just, gently. Like the body finally catching up to the peace the heart had started to build. I was reading more. Cooking for myself. Sleeping in when I felt like it. Life felt less like something to escape and more like something I'd finally arrived in. I joined a songwriting group, mostly older folks and a couple college kids who thought they were the next Springsteen. We met once a week in the back of a music store, shared lyrics, played half-finished songs, laughed at each other's rhymes. No pressure. Just presence. One night, they asked me to play something. I hesitated, then picked up my guitar and sang the little tune I'd written months ago. I gave you my heart, and you tuned it for someone else's song. The room was quiet after. One of the older guys nodded and said, "That one's got truth in it." It felt good. Not because they liked it. But because I meant it. The music wasn't just an outlet anymore, it was part of the rebuilding. Every chord I strummed felt like a step back to myself. Every verse I scribbled in the margins of an old notebook helped stitch together pieces I didn't know were loose. Some days I'd walk by the park and sit on the bench for hours, just watching life unfold. Kids kicking soccer balls, couples walking dogs, folks sipping coffee and solving crosswords. Nobody knew what I'd been through, and that anonymity, it was healing. I didn't have to explain myself. I just existed. One afternoon, I ran into Carol, a friend of Lola's from years back. We used to all go to trivia nights together. She looked at me and paused, as if unsure whether to wave. Eventually she said, "You look lighter." I smiled. "I am." She nodded, and her voice dropped to something softer. "I always thought she didn't know what she had." "I think she did," I said. "She just wanted something else." Carol didn't argue. We talked for a little while, caught up on life, and parted ways with no awkward promises to keep in touch. Just two people crossing paths in a town that had started to feel bigger again. I saw Lola one more time after that. Not in person. She posted a video, something she rarely did. It was her, sitting alone at her old piano, singing a stripped-down cover of an old folk song we used to play in the car. No makeup. No polish. Just her and a shaky voice. She looked older. Softer. Maybe a little lost. I watched the whole thing. Once. Then I closed the app and turned off my phone. She was finding her voice again. Good for her. But her song didn't belong in my life anymore. Mine was quieter now. Simpler. Stronger. Built not on fantasy, but on the raw honesty of starting over. And I had no intention of letting it be rewritten by anyone else again. Summer rolled in slower that year. Or maybe I was just paying attention for the first time in a long while. I'd sit on the porch in the mornings with a coffee and let the quiet speak. No phone buzzing. No tension humming in the walls. Just the rustle of trees and the occasional bark from the neighbor's dog. I'd started journaling again, something I hadn't done since college. Most of it was rambling, but there were moments, lines I'd write and then reread thinking, yeah, that's true. I think when you've been through fire, the first thing you miss is the ability to trust your own voice again. Writing helped with that. Somewhere around mid-June, I got a call from Rachel, my cousin's wife. She runs a local art nonprofit. They were planning a small event, part fundraiser, part community night. Music, food trucks, small-town vibes. She asked if I'd consider playing a few songs. Nothing big. Just a guy with a guitar and a stool. I hesitated. The idea of being on a stage again, any kind of stage, made something twist in my stomach. But Rachel knew me. Knew what I'd been through. She said, "You've got something worth hearing. And maybe someone out there needs to hear it." So I said yes. The night came faster than I expected. It wasn't packed. Just a couple dozen folding chairs, string lights, and the smell of barbecue in the air. But it felt right. No expectations. Just honesty. When I stepped up, the crowd hushed in that strange way crowds do. I introduced myself. Said I wasn't a performer, just a guy with some things on his mind. And then I played. I played the song about being replaced. I played the one I wrote after the bookstore. I even played a new one, a hopeful one, about second chances that don't involve going backward. People clapped. A few stood. And afterward, a man about my age came up and shook my hand. He said, "My wife left me last year. Thought I was alone in it. Thanks for reminding me I'm not." That moment. That was the real encore. I drove home that night with the windows down. No music. Just the road and the wind and the kind of silence that fills you instead of hollowing you out. Lola messaged me the next day. Just a simple line, "I heard you played. I'm glad." I didn't respond. Not out of bitterness. But because the message wasn't for her. It was for me. And I'd already received it. Fall came early that year. The air crisped up, leaves started their slow golden descent, and I found myself wearing flannel again, not out of habit, but because it finally felt like me. I'd come full circle in a way, though not back to who I was before. That version of me was gone. What remained was leaner, quieter, and somehow stronger. I took a trip. Nothing elaborate. Just packed up the truck and drove upstate for a weekend. Stayed at a lakeside cabin with spotty reception and a porch view that could hush even the noisiest thoughts. I didn't bring much, just a journal, my guitar, and a bottle of decent bourbon. That first night, I sat by the water, strummed whatever came to mind, and let the silence answer back. The next morning, I wrote a new song. This one wasn't about Lola, or Miguel, or revenge. It wasn't about endings. It was about roots. About rebuilding from the ashes with hands that had known both creation and destruction. About choosing peace, not because it was easy, but because it was earned. On the way home, I took the long route. Drove through little towns with antique shops and mom-and-pop diners. Nobody knew me. Nobody knew what I'd been through. That anonymity was a strange gift, the ability to start fresh even without forgetting. Back home, I hung the finished song on my fridge. Just the lyrics. I didn't need applause or validation. The fact that it existed, that I'd made something from the rubble, was enough. I ran into Carol again at the market. She asked how I was. I told her the truth, better than I've been in years. She smiled. You look it. We walked out to our cars together. She asked if I was seeing anyone. I wasn't. She said, well, if you ever feel like grabbing dinner, just as friends, I'd say yes. I didn't promise anything. But I didn't say no. And that night, I didn't write a song. I didn't open my journal. I just sat on the porch, a blanket around my shoulders, coffee in hand, and let the wind rustle the trees while I watched the stars blink awake. There was no twist. No grand finale. Just the hum of a man who'd made it through the fire, built something honest from the ashes, and finally, was at home with himself. The end of a story, maybe. But the beginning of a life.